Let's talk about the Great Library of Alexandria. Just saying the name, right? It conjures up these incredible images of a legendary, almost mythical place, a single building that held all the knowledge of the ancient world. But the story of how it ended is just as famous as the story of how it began.
And you know the popular story. We all do. This image of one single catastrophic fire. A terrible night where centuries of genius, everything from philosophy and science to epic poetry, just vanished in a cloud of smoke. It's such a dramatic, tragic story.
But here's the thing. What if that story, as powerful as it is, isn't really the truth? What if the end of the world's greatest library wasn't one big explosion, but more like a slow, painful death by 1,000 cuts that happened over hundreds of years?
To really get how it ended, we have to go back to its unbelievable beginning. The goal here was just audacious. They wanted to collect a copy of every single scroll, every text in the entire known world.
The whole idea really started with Alexander the Great. He had this vision for the city of Alexandria to be this grand cultural capital. After he died, it was his general, Ptolemy I, and then his son who actually made it happen. They funded what was probably the most ambitious knowledge-gathering project in human history.
And get this, at its absolute peak, the library is said to have held up to 400,000 papyrus scrolls. To put that in perspective, that's like having 100,000 of our modern books. They were so serious about it, they had this rule. Any ship that docked in Alexandria had its books taken, copied, and the library kept the originals. The ship got the copy back.
And you have to understand, this was so much more than just a dusty building full of scrolls. The library was part of this huge campus called the Mouseion, the House of the Muses. You can think of it like the world's first big, state-funded university. They paid over 100 of the greatest minds to just live there, eat there, and think. To argue, discover, and invent.
And the results of that experiment? They were just staggering. This is the place where Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the entire planet with incredible accuracy. It's where Hero invented a kind of primitive steam engine, where Callimachus created the world's first library catalog. This place wasn't just storing knowledge, it was an engine for creating it.
There was supposedly an inscription carved above the shelves that read, "The place of the cure of the soul." That just says it all, doesn't it? It shows this deep belief that knowledge wasn't just for practical stuff, but for making humanity better.
So, if this place was so vital, so important, how on earth did it just disappear? Well, this is where we start to pull apart that myth of the single fire. The real story seems to be a long, painful decline over almost 500 years.
Okay, so the first major cut came way back in 1450 BC. A paranoid king basically kicked out all the foreign scholars, scattering the library's brainpower all over the Mediterranean. Then you have the most famous incident, in 48 BC when Julius Caesar accidentally started a fire on the docks. It probably burned a warehouse with scrolls in it, but not the main library. Fast forward to 272 AD, and a Roman invasion completely wrecked the part of the city where the library was. And the final fatal blow? That came in 391 AD, when a mob demolished the Serapeum, which was like the library's daughter branch, and probably held the last big collection of books.
And what's really fascinating is that even the ancient historians couldn't quite agree on what happened with Caesar's fire. See, Seneca says 40,000 scrolls, quote, from the library were destroyed. But another historian, Cassius Dio, is a bit more specific. He says storehouses of books were burned. That tiny difference in wording is a huge clue. It really suggests it was a warehouse down by the port, not the great library itself.
So the bottom line is this. By the time a Christian mob destroyed the Serapeum temple in 391 AD, the main, great library was probably already long gone, where it just faded away from centuries of budget cuts, neglect, and war. The destruction of the Serapeum was really the final, violent nail in the coffin for what was left of Alexandria's great intellectual tradition.
This, of course, brings up a really terrifying question. Was all that knowledge lost forever? Well, the answer, amazingly, is no. And the story of how it survived is just as incredible as the story of how the library was created in the first place.
You can almost think of it like a great intellectual relay race across centuries. First, you have those scholars who were kicked out way back in 1450 BC. They took the knowledge with them and started new schools. Later, tons of texts were copied and saved in places like Constantinople. Then, during the Islamic Golden Age, you have scholars in Baghdad's House of Wisdom who painstakingly translated all these Greek texts into Arabic, studying and adding to them. And finally, those Arabic versions were translated into Latin, making their way back to Europe and helping to light the spark of the Renaissance.
And this image of a library in Baghdad is such a powerful reminder of that crucial middle step. Honestly, without the incredible dedication of these medieval Islamic scholars, countless works of Greek philosophy, medicine, and science would have just been gone, lost to the Western world forever.
So, the physical library, the building itself, may be gone. But the idea of it, the dream of having one universal place for all knowledge, well, an idea is a lot harder to kill than a building. And eventually, that idea was reborn.
You know, we often look at the past through this really romantic lens, like that drawing on the left. But on the right, you see the stunning, tangible reality of the present. The spirit of that ancient library is alive and well in its modern successor. It's a testament to the fact that the mission just never really died.
Yeah. This is the Bibliotheca Alexandrina. It opened in 2002, really close to where the original one stood, and it was built to consciously carry that torch, to be a center for learning and tolerance and understanding for our modern digital world.
And all of this leaves us with one last, pretty sobering thought. The story of Alexandria isn't just about ancient scrolls. It's really a cautionary tale, isn't it? It shows how easily knowledge can be threatened by politics, by budget cuts, by conflict, and it forces us to ask ourselves, in our own age of fragile digital servers in the cloud, is our collective knowledge, our memory, really any safer than theirs was?